Hey folks, John Kelly. Welcome back to the Law Enforcement Life Coach Sometimes Heroes Need Help podcast. This podcast is being brought to you by On Target Claims, where their motto is on target from setback to settlement. Now listen, a little background. I've worked with these guys on the job, on the street for over 25 years, man, and they have always done the right thing and have always had my back. Now, in this second chapter, let them have your back. Right? You wouldn't go to court without an attorney. Why would you go up against an insurance company without representation, right? They represent you, the policyholder, when you go up against an insurance company submitting a claim. And I can tell you this, right? From beginning to end, they're going to be with you during the entire process. They're going to properly document that claim with the latest technology. And then when it comes time to getting things fixed, they've got a complete stable of vendors that are certified that are going to get it done right the first time. They also offer a pre-loss planning and policy review. So you know exactly what you're covered for, right? Make sure that you're adequately covered. The time to find out that you're not isn't after that horrific event. Okay? So give my friends a call at On Target Claims, 561-208-1775, or go to their website, ontargetclaims.com. They cover the entire state of Florida, offices in Fort Lauderdale and Tampa, and tell them John sent you. And now let's get to the episode. Awesome, man. Hey, folks, John Kelly, welcome back. Law Enforcement Life Coach with your Sometimes Heroes Need Help podcast. Listen, stop what you're doing. All right. Clear your calendar. I'm sitting down with Bob Darling, and I have known Bob. We've never met in person, but like a lot of things post-COVID, everything's done over Zoom and phone calls. I don't even know where to begin, man. Marine Corps veteran, all around just fucking awesome guy. He has had some life experiences buzzing around in Cobra attack call helicopters in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Somalia, part of Marine One detachment, and he just becomes the guy, man, through a lot of hard work and sacrifice. Finds himself inside the presidential bunker on 9/11, and hence we have the book 24 Hours Inside the President's Bunker, 9/11/01, the White House. And listen, I could go on and on. I'm gonna shut up, and Bob Darling and I are going to talk about his career and how he came to be that guy in that bunker and what he's doing now, more importantly, to help agencies, people figure out how to lead in times of crisis. All right. So without further ado, this is, I think, one of the friggin' longest introductions I've ever had. Listen, Bob Darling, brother.
It's great to be here, John. I tell you, I've been trying to get on your show for a year. You and I talked initially when you were kicking off this career, this second chapter in your life, and you have just blossomed because there's a real need out there. Warriors of a different color and uniform all need help, and you're out there finding out how to get them.
Man. No, I appreciate it. I am. We have a mutual friend, Sean Coakley. You were flying Marine One with Sean back during the Clinton era, I believe, if memory serves me correctly. And Sean and I went to Norwich together. So, you know, they say it's 6 degrees of separation. Yeah. I got to call bullshit, man. I think it's more like 2 or 3. I mean, everybody knows somebody, man.
And knowing Sean Coakley, hey, we're both better people for that, right? He was a card carrying professional. He was one of the selected few in the squadron that actually could sign the aircraft for the president of the United States. He was a designated Marine One. Just knowing him makes me better.
No, listen, it's an amazing circle, man. It's an amazing circle. So listen, that was quite an introduction, but I want to start back, before, obviously, well before 9/11, because I think a lot of the things that you were a part of in your career as a Marine Corps aviator kind of put you in a position to be that guy to make those kind of decisions during a time of crisis. So, OCS, basic school, we started talking a little bit. And so if you wouldn't mind, man, just for the listener, how do you listen? Gotta be listen. There are a lot of amazing kick-ass jobs in the military, but I gotta think being an Apache, a Cobra attack helicopter pilot, it's gotta be. Listen, man, I don't. Could you ever come down off of that cloud, man?
No, you're right, John. I mean, there's a lot of things to do in the Corps, but when you have two pilots, all the bullets you can carry, and your job is to go blow shit up. Excuse my French.
Yeah, no.
Go back, get more bullets, and blow stuff up.
You're cleared hot on this podcast, bro. You're cleared hot. Whatever you got to say it, man.
A 25-year-old, how do you get a better job than that?
That's awesome, man. And so you're through the basic school. You're watching Cobras zip in and out of exercises, and you have an interaction with a pilot, and that kind of changes the way you look at things. Talk to us.
Sure. When we're at TBS, you don't know if you want to be a jet pilot, a helicopter guy, a transport guy. And one of the exercises all lieutenants have to go through is what we call a 9-line brief. And you get to call in this day, either a Harrier jet or a Cobra attack helicopter to drop bombs, drop ordnance on your target. So I'm the lieutenant. I'm up there. I'm nervous. I'm trying to go through the 9-line. I'm stuttering on the radio. And this salty pilot chimes in on the other end. He goes, "Lieutenant, where are you?" And I go, "Sir, I'm on Training Hill, Alpha Bravo 11." He goes, "We'll be right there." And I'm like, "Yeah, man. What does that mean?" And right over the treetops, here comes this Cobra loaded for bear, lands in the weeds, 100 feet to my right. Co-pilot jumps out and comes over and goes, "Hey, Lieutenant, this is us. This is you. We're going to attack in this direction. All I need from you is a cleared hot. You got that?" I go, "Yes, sir." Boom. And when he ran away, I was like, how do I be that guy?
Yeah, man. Oh my God. You just met the guy you wanted to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. So you finish up the basic school, you get your billet, and it can't be that much further in time, Bob, that where we get involved with Desert Shield and Desert Storm, no?
Yeah, absolutely. That was 1990. So I went through flight school, got my wings in October of 89.
Okay.
And less than a year later, Saddam Hussein crosses the border,
right.
into Kuwait. So I'm going out as a boot lieutenant, Cobra attack pilot, out to Desert Shield.
No kid. And so you're out there, and that was, I mean, I got to imagine there was a little bit of frustration because that engagement was over in less than 48 hours for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, but we were there 9 months.
Okay, talk to me about that.
Waiting for those 100 hours, for this thing to go on. We got there 11 days after he invaded. We're in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia, now to protect Saudi in case he keeps coming south.
Sure.
Okay. And why he kind of held and why we're waiting on the Army. Everybody's always waiting.
See, there you go. There you go. Mixing it up.
Big Army. The Marine Corps job is, we do we're first in, we grab the port, we grab the airfield, we grab key terrain, and then we let Big Army come in with their armor and just gobs of equipment and people.
Absolutely.
And that's our job. So we held in Saudi Arabia, and we were there all the way from August to December, where we got put out on the ships. The Army was there, and they kicked off the air war. They started dropping bombs in January, and literally 6 weeks of bomb dropping. We got to go in for 100 hours of combat, and it was just a mop up session.
Nice. And so, does that bring us to 93 in Kuwait?
That was Somalia, Africa. Yeah, 93 in Kuwait first, and then we went over to Somalia. Yeah, that's right. Okay. I went back home, deployed again. This time I was a captain, now seasoned Cobra pilot. Okay. And we went right back to Kuwait. That was and we got diverted into Somalia because that was starting to heat up.
Okay. And educate me, because I were you in Somalia during the time of our the infamous Black Hawk Down incident?
So it's a great story. We were there right before. So the Army had the mission, and it was a peacetime mission. The UN was sort of delivering food, and General Adid, the bad guy, was not yet designated a bad guy. He was playing both sides.
Okay.
So we went in June to help deliver the food, and we found out he was stealing all the food, all the aid, everything got delivered. He would come in after us and take it away from the people. Okay. He got designated an outlaw in July of '93. We had done a mission to go get him, and you're going to love this, John. Talk about 1 degree of separation. We're on the ships. The CIA, I guess, radios in. He's on the move. 3 land cruisers leaving Mogadishu. We lift off with this armada of special operations, Huey helicopters, attack helicopters, and our job was to make sure nobody comes to help them in the Cobras.
Right, because that's a serious. You can deal with him. It's the militia that's coming that is the problem.
Yeah, and if anybody tries to come help them while we're doing this snatch and grab, then our job was to engage. So we're hovering over top of the whole thing. The Hueys with snipers took out the first vehicle, the third vehicle, the special ops guys land, but we didn't let them get far enough out of Mogadishu. So 1,000 people are now running down the road.
Holy smokes.
He gets out of his car, that middle car, and he's running back towards them. Next thing you know, clash of titans, special ops running over Somalis left and right, trying to grab him.
Oh,
we
wow.
we lose him in the crowd. We have to medevac 14 Somalis, and we take them back to the USS Wasp that was off the coast. Ooh. So we did not get him.
Yikes.
Time was up. We went home in August. Our Army took over. They were waiting for us the next time, and they had Black Hawk now.
So that's when General Garrison was put in charge of that whole operation, and that's the rest of that history there.
Yep. If we would have grabbed him, there would have been no Black Hawk. He got away.
Yeah.
Time was up, and they were ready the next time.
Jeez, it's amazing how things play out, man. Craziness. So you that brings you wrap up Somalia, you redeploy to Kuwait. And there's a story in the book that I love. I love reading because in my mind, you know, I picture the desert. Like I picture what's going on. And I didn't have to use too much imagination, man, because you really dialed in on the description of everything that was happening. Tell me about that incident when you guys were out in the middle of the desert. It was a training op, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. We never stopped training, even when we deploy. In between, even combat missions, we train. We train all the time. This was a training event. It was a low light, night vision goggle, mean no moonlight out there at all, dark as can be. We're wearing goggles, and we're going to deliver ordnance on a training target under the control of a forward air controller, a Marine on the ground. So 2 Cobras take off. We're in a racetrack pattern over the target area where you dive in, you get cleared hot, you release your ordnance, and you pull off cold. We call cold, no more ordnance. Yep. And the gun on my -2, the other Cobra who was following me in was so loud, he ended up inadvertently flying right through the 200-foot hard deck that we had set for ourselves, not to go any lower. Right. And next thing you know, he drove his Cobra right into a sand dune, bouncing off the desert floor and spinning out of control straight up to 2,000 feet.
That's insane. So he dances with death, and in the book you're telling him, you're trying to get him like back to everybody's white knuckling it on that ship, right? Mm-hmm. And
yeah,
I think if I remember correctly, both the pilot and co-pilot are not knowingly, but are fighting for control over the ship.
Yeah. Front seat has got flight control just like the back seat, and neither one would let the other guy fly. They just saw death, and they were literally having to fight and wrestle for control, going straight up. Goggles had snapped off, so now they're pitch black, out of control, max power.
And if I remember correctly, all the avionics that would let them know what direction. People don't understand that it's very easy to get disoriented flying. Up is down. Up is down, left is right. You think you're right. Ascending, but you're actually descending.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important to be instrument qualified, right?
That's absolutely right, John.
But when you don't have any instruments.
Yeah. The altitude gyro that we use, our artificial horizon broke so they couldn't even tell where the horizon was. It's pitch black outside, and they're climbing. They can see their altimeter climbing, thank God, but they're no longer going forward. They're going straight up.
Right. And so you got on you're their co-pilot, and they were in your squadron.
Yeah.
And you get them back to where they need to be to take control back over that ship, but there's a problem.
Yeah, it took a long time to calm them down, right? To get them to release some power, get the nose over, start going forward.
Right.
Let one of them fly. Start talking to them again. You have to go through, you know, just like in law enforcement, you go through, you got to get them to breathe again, kind of relax. Right. And I got them flying towards Kuwait International. You know, the helicopter, we don't know the status of their helicopter. Are they leaking fluid? Are they going to, is there an impending transmission failure, engine failure? Is the aircraft going to come apart? But it's rather than land in the pitch black night in the middle of the desert, we're going to try to go 56 miles and make it to Kuwait International and just keep this thing together. And sure enough, we got there. They didn't understand our English language barrier. I could see fire trucks with the lights on in the middle of this international airport, and we crossed every runway, broke every rule, and flew right to the crash fire rescue to try to get my co-pilot there, whose now aircraft is badly damaged, the equipment he needs to land.
Right. And so you had some tough decisions to make. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, no doubt. So he had no landing skids. He had no landing gear. The helicopter is only 3.5 feet wide. It's just made for two pilots, you know, as streamlined as can be.
Front to back. Yeah, man.
So that thing is going to tip over. As soon as you go onto the body of that thing, there's not enough aircraft to keep it upright. And they're running out of gas. I kicked my co-pilot out. I say, you got to go find something for him to land on. Now, Cobra's got some little stubby wings that we carry ordnance on. We carry rockets, missiles, whatever we can carry on there. And they're pretty hardy. They're pretty sturdy. So I say, hey, you know, they got 10 minutes. You better go find something for them to land on. And sure enough, with minutes to spare, he comes chugging back with two 4-foot-high Air Force pallets, 4 feet apart. We got them in position literally before they flamed out, running out of gas. And they were able to put that aircraft down on its elbows.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Listen, if that doesn't happen, not only are we talking their safety, but everybody else around there.
Yeah, that rotor blade would have hit the ground and shrapneled. You know, it could have been horrible for everybody.
Yeah, no bueno. So that was one of those cooler heads prevailed, man, and you came up with a plan. That's awesome. After Kuwait, when do you make it to the White House? In the what is it, the HMX-1 detachment?
Yeah, the Marine Helicopter Squadron One, HMX-1 is what we call it, the designator of that. That happened in 1998. So I came from Kuwait, home from Kuwait in Somalia. They made me a Cobra flight instructor out of Camp Pendleton, California for 2 years. I went to New York to be a recruiter, where I was giving college kids rides in a Robinson. You and I had talked about that.
Man. Or probably a 44, right?
No, I had a 22.
You had a 22, okay.
And I could take one college kid at a time in that. We would land on college campuses and give rides like a barnstormer.
Listen, did you almost forget that you were in a Robinson and not a Cobra?
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty apparent when you're
no barrel rolls, right?
Yeah, no more of that. You don't have the horsepower or the torque. You got to be pretty gentle in a Robin. Right. But it's a great, fun aircraft to fly, right? So for a college kid, it was huge.
Absolutely.
So I got to do that.
You fooled them into believing that they were actually going to be Cobra. It's like what the Navy does with the SEAL program. So you're like, yeah, I'm Bob Darling. I'm flying attack choppers. You can too.
Yeah, that's right. You know what, John? It's like the SEALs. They throw you in a swimming pool and they go, wow, you can tread water. You're going to be
awesome.
You're awesome. We need you.
Oh my God.
And we gave them a t-shirt. We motivated them.
Oh,
they
shit.
went that thing.
Yeah,
but in 1998, I put a package in then in June of 98 and got selected to fly with Sean Coakley and those guys at Marine Helicopter Squadron One.
That is awesome. And so tell me about, I read in the book too, you, so just a little more for folks that might not be overly familiar with that. That's Marine One. That basically the president, vice president, their primary mode of transportation 99% of the time is not Air Force One.
That's right. It's Marine One. We have the helicopter mission. The Air Force has the big jet mission. Right. So we're the ones that land on the White House lawn every day and take him over to Andrews, Joint Base Andrews, and he gets on Air Force One and then travels out of town. But wherever he's going in the world, Marine One has been redeployed to meet him at that location. So we're constantly embarking helicopters in the belly of C-17s and C-5s and moving them around the world in advance of Air Force One.
And if memory serves me correctly, it's never just one.
No, it's never one. We like to use the three, the model of three.
Sure.
And we do the shuffle game. So sometimes he's in the third position, second position, first position. We want to keep our adversaries off guard.
Yeah, we did the same thing when we were running POTUS and VPOTUS in the package on the ground. That shuffle that takes place is as long as it doesn't happen when you're zipping up alongside the package. I mean, that it gets dicey, but yeah, man, it's neat that some of those tactics, they whether you're in the air or on land, they still there's a little bit of crossover there.
And your listeners, they have no idea. I wish I had more time to tell them what it takes to keep our president and vice president safe. The enormity of the package, right? When he goes to the UN, there's probably 2,000 people involved. And I don't know how many law enforcement on top of that to make sure that he can get where he's got to go for 2 hours and get out of there safely.
Yeah, no, these missions, between an advanced team and it's all consuming. You are flying in that detachment, Marine One, President Clinton, and that runs, and that's not, you get promoted, not out of that, but you've got some skill sets, and they're going to leverage those skill sets.
Yeah, it's a 4-year tour. So you're supposed to be there from 98 to 2002 flying. That's what you ideally want to go there for.
Right.
But there's other requirements. And one of the requirements is we need a professional aviator in the White House to represent the squadron when it comes to White House contingency planning and other missions. So the squadron CO ultimately picked me and said, I need you to wear a suit and tie, give up flying for the last year and a half, and go on up there and represent us. Nobody wants the job.
Well, wait a minute. This goes back to your call sign now, though, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, the whole call sign thing, I'm glad you brought that up. So if your listeners
are you going to set the story straight?
Yeah. I want you to know nobody's Maverick, Blade, Ice. No. Nobody in real life gets those kind of call signs.
Oh my God. No, I unfortunately, that's not the case though. You got a really awesome call sign by your squadron mates.
Well, and I got it, and you say awesome. I say,
maybe I'm being a little sarcastic.
But I was, when we were in Desert Storm earlier on, I was the squadron commanding officer's aide, if you will. I had to go and get him the intel board and make sure his car was washed and, all that kind of stuff. So I was his little butt boy, if you will.
That's it.
But I had inside information as a result of being his butt boy.
Yeah.
And I would go back to my contemporaries and hold that information over their head like I was somebody. So all of a sudden, now you have to get a call sign. And they were trying to call me apolitical, politician, brown noser. None of those were good enough.
No.
And someone said, what's a synonym for a brown noser, apolitical kind of guy? And someone yelled out shyster. And I got that call sign, a very derogatory term.
No, not.
I figured I would wear it.
Oh my God. Yeah. You're not overly enthusiastic about painting that anywhere.
Yeah. Right. But I didn't want to fight back then. I said, I'm going to embrace it.
Oh, bro, it would have got 10 times worse if you fought it.
Yeah, exactly right. And so they still call me that today. I can't shake it.
That's funny. So you are basically the maestro for all air assets that have to do with the White House, the coming and going.
Everything from the advance to the actual mission day. you make sure you're part of a bigger team that's doing that planning and coordination. Those cars, limousines, snipers, doctors, helicopters, phones, they have to be there at every location. Everyone's got to be in place, rehearsed, trauma one centers, backup helicopter landing zones, alternate hotels, enough runway space for all the aircraft. It's all got to be done in advance.
Yeah, it's amazing that I don't know what people know or what they don't know, but that whole package, all the support vehicles, all the limousines, everything ends up on a plane and gets dropped every move. Those vehicles don't exist in those. We don't have a fleet of limousines and support vehicles in South Florida. They all get flown in.
That's right. And because of that, we have backup aircraft to those primary aircraft. So that C-17, we get 2 to make 1. So we end up going with.
So is that the Galaxy?
The C-17. Yeah, I think it's C5 Galaxy is the huge one.
The huge one, right?
The C-17, I forget what that call sign was, but it's a stubbier one, lots of power, easier to get in and out of places.
Gotcha.
And it's our primary mover today.
Gotcha. So you're that guy on September 10th.
I'm the guy, yeah.
And so if you don't mind, and you pick and choose what you want to share, obviously. But come September 11th, man, it was just another day up until about 8:50 in the morning, right?
That's exactly right. So our president, like what you just said, John, he went to Florida, Sarasota on the 10th. He spent the night. He was going to be done down there doing his academic agenda type stuff. Right. At 1 o'clock, we were going to be wheels up Air Force One, get all the heavy lift in there, clean up all the helicopters and limos, and come on back to Joint Base Andrews when everything changed that day at 8:46.
Right. And so he's in Florida. There's a whole nother team running his movement now, right? I mean, because basically all the air assets are deployed already for that trip.
Oh yeah, everybody's in place, fully rehearsed, ready to go.
Right. And so walk us, if you will, on how you end up in the bunker with Vice President Cheney and Condoleezza Rice and that whole group, because there was a point in the book, and I think Cheney said, and you are like how are you helping me, like, being in this bunker? And tell me how that all went, because again, this is whole orchestrated timeline of things going on that need to happen that most of the country was just completely unaware of.
Yeah, and I'll tell your listeners, like everybody else, it started at 8:46. We're in the Eisenhower Executive Office building. We're worried about the president's trip. We're monitoring his movements and his schedule. When someone came running in and said, "Hey, quick, turn on the TV," a small airplane just hit the North Tower. Like all of you, we went to the TV set. We looked at that first clear photo, and everybody said, and I remember saying, that's a pretty big hole for a Cessna.
Yeah, man.
Right. And then we started, sure enough, it's the White House. Phones are ringing now. Airlift ops, phones are ringing. American Airlines Flight 11 departed out of your old neighborhood.
Yeah,
Boston Logan Airport on its way out to LAX. Lost communications over Albany, New York, down the Hudson River as a hijacked airplane, and crashed into the North Tower at over 500 miles an hour. So now everybody's heightened. We're all thinking this is a pilot. Why would he careen into a 110-story landmark? What's going on? What's going on?
Right. A medical emergency, something.
Exactly.
Right. We couldn't even fathom that would be a plan of attack.
Until 1 billion people watched United Airlines Flight 175 careen into the South Tower.
Yeah.
And at that very moment in time, at 9:03, that colonel that I worked for was an Air Force full bird colonel. He came into our little operation center and said, "Everybody stop what you're doing. Eyeballs on me. We have a full-blown terrorist event unfolding right before our eyes in the city of New York." Yeah. And the world changed for us right at that moment.
That's insane. That was a lot of people's lives changed that day, and not for the better, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
And I have a feeling we're going to have to, and if it's okay with you, brother, a part two, because I want to keep going on this track, but I think if I can just interject, I think we suffer from amnesia. And I know our young people that weren't even born, I don't know where we're at in today's society where we can be so dismissive of the past and history. And so that before I get off on that whole tangent, but that's it like you're a student of history. I'm a student of history, and apparently there are a large segment of our population that doesn't think about history or doesn't think that history will repeat itself. But that's for another podcast, brother. Yeah. I want to talk to you now. So, everyone in that briefing knows that we're under attack. What's Bob Darling's next move?
Yeah, so we're worried about New York, when all of a sudden an airliner overflew the White House, which is prohibited airspace. Yeah. And a few minutes later, we have breaking news. The Pentagon was just struck by Flight 77, American Airlines Flight 77. Sure enough, now we have a Northeast Squadron attack on America. We don't just have an air attack on Manhattan. Right. And the White House, for the second time in history, was ordered evacuated. First time being 1814, when the British were burning down Washington, D.C., with Dolly Madison carrying out a print of George Washington. And here it is 187 years later. Wow. We're evacuating the White House for the second time in history.
Holy smokes. And so with that order, how is it that you end up with the folks that you end up with?
So that colonel came in and said, you heard it, lock up your safes, secure your classified information. Yeah, it's true. We used to care about that. Lock it all up. Now you can put it in the back of your Corvette and keep it
apparently.
At the beach house.
Hey, top secret, classified.
Yeah. What's the difference?
Oh my God.
So sure enough, they evacuate the White House and they tell us to leave, go to the alternate site. But I grabbed the colonel and said, President Bush is not coming back. Wherever they're going to take him right now, he needs limousines, snipers, doctors, helicopters, phone. He needs the package.
Right.
He goes, you can't be here. Go across the street, go underground into the President Emergency Operations Center, do logistics. The rest of us are out of here. I'll see you later.
Okay.
So I got to the top of the steps. I ran across. I showed my credentials. Secret Service lets me in. I'm deep underground, standing before a bank vault on steroids. Pick up the phone, request permission to enter. I'm in the underground bunker complex known as the POC, or President Emergency Op Center.
And so you make your way, and like, if you don't have that conversation with the colonel, I mean, that might be something that gets overlooked in a time of national emergency. We're under attack. Everybody, bug out, go to alternate sites. But hey, who's take care of the boss? Who's we don't know where his next stop's going to be, quite frankly, right?
Right.
Great to have that presence of mind that, because the communications, from what I'm told, was really was tough that day.
Oh my God, John. I mean, you're hitting all the right nerves. So I get to the bunker, I get in there and I see Vice President Cheney's military aide. He's a colleague of mine. He's an Air Force major. I was a Marine Corps major at the time. I said, Tom, I'm here to do logistics. I'll stay out of your way. And he's the one who said, Bob, forget logistics. I need help. Answer the phones. Literally, I looked around. There's an empty desk, an empty cubicle. I ran over there, dropped the planning kit. 7 minutes now after the White House was ordered evacuated, my first phone call when I picked it up at 9:52 was the Situation Room in the upstairs West Wing, calling into the bunker to tell me about another hijacked aircraft called Flight 93, United Flight 93.
You're like, you got to be beside yourself. Like,
yeah, I literally,
like, really?
You're going to have to hold on. And that's when I turned around to tell Tom, the mill aide, and this far away from me is Vice President Cheney, his wife, Lynn, Dr. Rice, the National Security Advisor, her deputy, Norman Mineta, our Secretary of Transportation. Everyone who was upstairs was now evacuated into the bunker. Come over to my phone to hear about this.
Vice President Cheney, I think you want to take this one.
Yeah. Literally. And, you know, it was interesting enough. I tell him in news, Mr. Vice President, we have another hijacked aircraft 16 miles south of Pittsburgh inbound. He turned away from me, and up on the wall are these 3 black boxes, but they're landlines, they're speaker boxes. He's looking for Donald Rumsfeld, our Secretary of Defense. The military only takes orders from the president or the Secretary of Defense. The vice president is not in our chain of command.
Okay. By design. By design.
Yeah, by design. Right. He's fully briefed and read in. So should our president ever be killed, incapacitated, or unwilling to do his duties, we can invoke the 25th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, transfer those powers until a new election is held.
Okay.
So he's looking for Donald Rumsfeld, but Donald Rumsfeld is in the parking lot right now as a
He's over at the Pentagon, isn't he?
Yes, at the Pentagon parking lot, assisting with evacuating the wounded.
Can I tell you? A for effort, man. A for effort. Not your job.
Not your job. So try to imagine he's lost among thousands. The president's trying to get airborne. No one is at the helm of our national military command and control structure to tell our pilots how to defend America.
That's the one of those situations where, you know, I wish we would have worked this shit out in training.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody could have ever, nobody's mind was that diabolical to ever foresee this kind of threat. I guess that's more of a question than a statement.
Yeah. You know, and we spent a lot of money and time to make sure that our Secretary of Defense has got all the comm gear, all the military aides carrying their footballs around with all the information they need, so they're never out of touch. Yeah. But no one ever thought the Secretary of Defense himself would be under attack. The president would be trying to get airborne. We always thought we would be safe, these two folks, and they would be able to communicate. Well, now the chaos came to us.
And so it's frustrating for Vice President Cheney, because he's aware of the Constitution and the limitations on his abilities. But time is of the essence here. You've got a plane closing at what, 500 miles an hour?
Yeah, 500 miles an hour.
And so how does that conversation go after everybody realizes that Mr. Rumsfeld, Secretary of Defense, is MIA, man?
So it was an amazing moment, because the country's on our heels. We got 3 planes and 3 targets. Our SecDef is outside. Our president's trying to get airborne. Vice President Cheney inserted himself into the military chain of command and said to a general officer, a 1-star, I want 2 F-15s out of Otis Air National Guard Base. Let me know when they're airborne. Stand by to shoot this aircraft down. And listening to that go out to the National Military Command Center, who then called Cheyenne Mountain, Colorado, who then called Northeast Air Defense Sector, they scrambled 2 F-15s that reported to be supersonic over Long Island, New York. Now, John, supersonic is about 1,200 miles an hour for an F-15 at sea level, and they could cover the distance, 350 miles between Long Island and Shanksville. They could cover it in less than 14 minutes.
Wow.
That's how fast they're going. And they are weapons free to engage. We have a real world military mission in progress.
That's going to be an unbelievable, the responsibility, right? Listen, we don't have a problem flying attack choppers or F-15s, F-18s in the Middle East and blowing shit up. That's all day long. Thank you. I can't wait to get back in the fight.
Sure.
Help me out. Was this the first time in the history of this country where our military has been cleared hot to engage a civilian aircraft?
First time I ever heard of it in history. We never studied that. We got Americans on that plane. We are willing to take American lives out of the sky to save more lives on the ground. The enormity of that decision.
That decision's made by the vice president in the blink of an eye, really. I mean,
Mhm.
he didn't have time to get a legal pad out and start writing the pros and cons and
Yeah.
but I want to speak to the responsibility that was now placed on those two pilots.
Yeah.
That's I don't even have the words for it, Bob.
You know, it's pretty heavy stuff
Yeah.
when you and I think about that. But I will tell you, going through flight training and going through that, those pilots knew we had 3 planes and 3 targets, right? Unfortunate for the people on board that airplane.
100%.
150-ton Tomahawk cruise missile trying to kill people on the ground.
Right.
And they compartmentalize. We don't get up there and go through
Of
the
course.
whole,
Of course.
pros and cons. Your mission is to engage, and they are, that's what they're doing. They're making sure they got the right weapons parameter to defend this country. There'll be time enough to mourn and grief and question.
Of course.
Yeah,
of course. But I think that's something I think that a lot of people don't understand too, is that the folks in our military, they have to be a different breed. They have to see the bigger picture, and the burden and the weight that they carry on their shoulders at any time is something to maybe be revered, respected, and
well, this also goes back to another top conversation we're going to have about trust.
yeah.
We have got to trust our government. We have to trust our leaders. So if they're telling you to shoot that civilian airline down, there better be a damn good reason.
Right.
And we have to trust in them so we can execute without second guessing. Because when you second guess, people get killed, right?
100%.
We lose that trust for whatever reason, political reasons or things that are going on today. Then you all of a sudden, you insert indecision in the hands of those people that you're counting on most in a split second.
Yeah, and that's I think that might not be a bad segue. Is some more information you'd like to talk about on that morning? Because I think what you're doing now, I don't want to eat up all your time, brother. I don't know if you've got some more time for me, but I'd love to continue this conversation.
Yeah, you got me. I was planning on being with you, for another 45 minutes.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. So you get you hear that command, that order from Cheney. Fortunately, there was a moment there. There was a moment. Talk to me about that moment when was 93.
Yes.
93's down, and can we get some clarification on that?
Yeah, can you imagine?
No,
so we heard on all the satellite radios. Well, first of all, they were weapons free to engage, and then all of a sudden, 5 minutes later, we heard on all these, we call them SATCOM, satellite radios, that aircraft is down. Aircraft is down 60 miles south of Pittsburgh. No survivors. The room went silent. We're watching Vice President Cheney. He's staring at these 3 speaker boxes. He turns around, he walks right over to me, gets in my face and says, "Major, for the congressional investigation, state your full name." He knew what he did was so incredible, if you will, that he wanted to get the historical record right, that it came from me over to him, over to the Pentagon.
Almost like a chain of custody of the conversation.
And he wanted to be responsible for it. It wasn't anything, this didn't happen, I wasn't here, the president did this. It was on my watch, we defended America and took unprecedented action.
Yeah.
And then within moments, seconds, we heard the same satellite radios tell us the F-15s never fired. So try to imagine this. 40 people, ordinary people, strangers, boarded that plane in Newark, on their way to San Francisco, heard from loved ones, 3 planes, 3 targets, we're not going to Cuba. And a stranger called Tom Burnett, Todd Beamer, 38 others came together on that airplane, fought back. We believe they got hands on terrorists in the cockpit, but that plane rolled upside down and hit straight down at over 500 miles an hour.
Holy smokes. Yeah, they're patriots. They're the folks that saved the day there.
And in your line of work, in my line of work, we meet patriots every day. Yeah. Everywhere I go, I just got back from talking to truckers. When the world goes south, the truckers keep rolling.
Yeah, man.
You know, where I came from Border Patrol, where they're walking the line for us. They're doing God's work on behalf of this country every day.
Every day, every day, every day. There's ordinary people doing extraordinary things.
Yes. We're lucky to get to meet them. So
100%, man.
I'm pinching 100%. Myself every time I get to tell the story, and a crowd is appreciative of it. And I'm looking at that crowd going, this country wouldn't be where it is today without the brave people to your left and right who would make sure that this country survives.
Sure. No doubt, man. No doubt. We are certainly blessed for that reason and for many others. So how does the rest of the day go after that? Because that was the last, if you will, significant attack thwarted. We still, at this point, did the FAA ground everything?
Soon after that, we had almost a near shoot down of an Army medevac helicopter.
Going down the Hudson? Was he going down the...
No, he was trying to get to the Pentagon carrying 6 Army doctors. But Ronald Reagan had evacuated, so no one called him back to give him permission in the airspace. Secret Service picked him up, and we were trying to kill them. We just didn't have a fighter jet in the area. And then we decided to land all airplanes. But the really most significant moment that I pinched myself being in the room was when President Bush was now established on Air Force One. He called for an air threat conference. That's essentially a cabinet level meeting in the sky. No matter where you are, every cabinet level secretary better pull out his Iridium phone and talk to the president of the United States. And it was when Donald Rumsfeld said, we need to move our nuclear weapons from Defense Condition 4, DEFCON 4, up to DEFCON 3. Now, we haven't been to DEFCON 3 since
the Cold War?
Yom Kippur War in 1973. And now 30 years later, almost, we're going to go DEFCON 3 again. President Bush said, you know what? That's a great idea. Have them stand by for DEFCON 2. And that hasn't happened since the Cuban Missile Crisis.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a call made to the Kremlin letting them know what we were doing, right? And why we were doing it.
Yeah, you know, for your listeners to understand that, part of the START treaty, the nuclear strategic agreement that the United States has with Russia, the deal is no one military nuclear superpower can sneak up on the other. It's just not fair. So if we go to 3, Russia wants to be DEFCON 3. Right. If they go 2, 2, 1, 1. So it's fair if the missiles pass each other, just not fair for those of us who want to live on this planet.
Right, no doubt.
They stayed at their DEFCON 4 while we went worldwide DEFCON 3.
And I guess that was a global show of support for the United States.
Yes, and everyone, doesn't matter whether you're a Marine in Australia, Japan, or Germany, every Marine, every soldier, sailor, airman, Coast Guard, everyone back to work when a DEFCON condition changes. It was like a recall roster on steroids.
Okay.
Everyone moved when a DEFCON condition changes.
Wow. It's an amazing time in history. I mean, for a lot of horrible reasons, but I always say, you know, what it was like the day after, man, 9/12, right? We were different people, man. We were the things that we embraced. We didn't see race, you know, we didn't see religion. We were all Americans, and in a way that I have never experienced in the short time that I've been alive.
Yeah, and I tell you, you're touching it right now, John. We remember churches, line of church, people out the door of churches wanting to get right with God, flags on every house. We all came together. There was no more politics. It was, you were Americans and we need to defend this country and this democracy. And then you fast forward now 22 years later, right? And you really worry for the state of our country right now when we can't even condemn a terrorist attack on an ally of ours without tearing ourselves apart.
It's insanity. And before we talk about Hamas and Israel, you visited the border not too long ago.
I sure did. You know, I've been fortunate enough to be passed around by the Border Patrol. I've been to Tucson sector 3 times, Miami, New Orleans, and now Laredo and the Rio Grande Valley just recently. And they were able to share with me some of their concerns. And I went up to the chief. For your listeners, there's a Border Patrol chief who's really in charge. He's the GS-15 or SES, Senior Executive Service guy. I said, Chief, what keeps you up at night? And he said, you know, I got to tell you, Colonel, we let 600,000 combat age men walk right by us. And I said, I don't know what that means. Why did you let them walk right by you? He said 2 reasons. One, we're busy building daycare centers for all the children now are being abandoned on our border. And 2, our politics are if they don't have a felony or a crime, we automatically let them go.
Yeah. And how are we identifying them to see if they don't have a felony or a crime?
We're using a database that doesn't exist on the other end. So they don't even run, John.
Why would they? You're never going to find out who I am.
You're never going to. And they go and they say, listen, will you promise to come back in 8 to 10 years? That's your court date. They go, oh, you bet. And they're gone. Here's your orange backpack, you know, with a deodorant and toothpaste. See ya.
Yeah. This isn't, listen, what I like, I don't want people to misunderstand this conversation. I don't care what political party you're affiliated with. This is what is going on now. I don't care who's in charge. We're not pointing fingers. This is the State of the Union. We have open borders where people that wish to do us harm don't have to pretend to be a student to get access to this country. They walked across our border. And so 9/11 was a wake-up call. Or at least it was for a lot of different communities in our country. I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, but I think we're due to be smacked.
Yeah, I want your listeners also to understand, you know, it just is an apolitical statement, right? Just like you said, it's not about party, right? There's enough blame to go around.
Right.
However, when you ask the Border Patrol who these people are, they're not Venezuelan, El Salvador, Mexico. You know, they didn't just walk up and say, I need a better life. There's some of that, right?
Of course.
But these people are from Syria, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iraq, Western Africa, Boko Haram terrorist organization, Western Africa.
Yes.
Somebody paid for their ticket to fly to Mexico so they can walk across our border. Now, who paid for that? What cartel bought them a ticket into our country? What terrorist organization?
Yeah, Iran just racked up a bunch of frequent flyer miles.
Exactly right. So you got to ask yourself, oh, I know there's people that need a better life who are oppressed. We're not trying to you know, be horrible.
We want those kind of people in this country.
But come in legally. We want them, but come in legally. But who are the others? And where are they going? And what are they doing? And why are they here? We don't know the answer to that.
And I always, I mean, I'd like to always think the glass is half full. And that somebody, right? This is, I think, the misconception is, well, the government's got to be monitoring them. They would if they knew who was here.
Yeah. We're not that big. Government's not that big. They can't keep tabs on all of us. And the fact is, we're very reactive, not proactive. You know, people have civil rights. We just can't be proactively rounding people up.
That is going to be the death of us, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Our kindness, I think, is going to ultimately be the root cause of our demise. Our unwillingness. Ready for this analogy? Our unwillingness for self-care.
Yeah.
We don't want to, we don't take care of ourselves as a country, but we want to take care of everyone else.
Yeah.
How does that work out on a personal level? It doesn't. And I can tell you it's not going to work out on a national level.
Yeah. And you know, and your podcast is right, taking care of law enforcement and veterans, taking care of those people. Well, we're asking those people to do exponentially more work because we have open borders. And now it's only the same size police force, the same size FBI, same size. Yeah. And we're saying, yeah, do whatever it takes to protect us. But here's another factor. We want to dump 600 combat age men on you. And I hope you can work it all out. Yeah. It's untenable.
No, it doesn't. And I can tell you when God forbid, not so much if, but when something gets sideways and there's another attack, there's going to be plenty of blame to go around, and it's not going to be on the people that caused and created this problem. And that's the unfortunate thing. I want to talk about what you're doing now, man, because you've taken all these life lessons, all these amazing life experiences, the good and the bad. Flash Emergency Management LLC. You are in the crisis leadership, corporate readiness, business continuity planning, crisis communication business.
Yeah.
And leading in times of uncertainty. I mean, come on, brother. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's a passion. It changed my life on 9/11 to see our country wounded. And I made it now it's my why. It's my, President Bush said in front of the whole world on September 20th, I will not forget the wound to our country and those who inflicted it. I will not yield. I will not rest. I will not relent in waging this struggle for freedom and the security of the American people. And it moved me.
That's your mantra, man.
That's my mantra. Everywhere I go, if you listen, I'll tell you a story. If you give me a chance, I'll write you a plan. If you allow me to identify your risk, we'll do a tabletop. I want this country to be resilient in every community. Every small and medium-sized business needs to have a plan, empower your employees, raise their confidence that they can handle anything, because it's not when, it's if. And I want to be ready this time.
That's awesome. I want to put all your information in the show notes, Bob. This has been, listen, the book, 24 Hours Inside the President's Bunker, Lieutenant Colonel Robert Darling. Dude, I've read this book twice because like a great movie, sometimes you pick up something the second time it just can't put it down. And the book's the book, bro. The real pleasure for me is getting to have you in my life as somebody that I can call a friend, and somebody that is doing great, has done great things their entire life. And when somebody could walk away and go, I've served, I've gave my pound of flesh, and you're back at it, man. And that mission of caring and trying to take care of people, it's defining, man. And I thank you so much for not only your service, man. I'm very jealous of some of the things that you got to do, but it's just something. And I thank you for your time. I know you're a busy man, and I really do appreciate you carving out some time to sit down and talk about some of these really life-changing historical events that you were a part of. I appreciate it, brother.
Hey, John, let me just say, you're my hero as well. What you're doing, really, you're turning around lives. You're keeping people focused and moving forward. It is people like you and I who are committed to not only the mission right in front of us, but the welfare of our country. I feel the same way. And if there's anything else I can do for you, you just pick up the phone and holler, and I'll be there.
I love it, brother. Ladies and gentlemen, Bob Darling, Colonel, thank you for your time, brother.
All right, John. We'll talk.